All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode. And I got another guest with us today who happens to be from the real world Miami, Mike Lambert. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing fine, Michael. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, it's good to finally meet you. Obviously, we connected and you know that I've chatted with a few of your previous cast members. So I'm very fortunate and glad to be speaking with you today, sir. How you doing? Like just on a general basis.
You know what? Well, I'm doing well. I'm living in North Florida now, where I was actually from. I got a little place by the beach. I last year hit the ripe old age of 50, so I'm not the young buck that I was, back doing the show. And all is well, dealing with family issues and stuff. And as you get older, things happen like that, and you get used to it by this point. But all is pretty well, though. I'm not complaining about anything.
Yeah, man, I remember going back and checking out Miami and seeing like you being from Florida and then having to go shoot the thing in Miami. Was that like ever like a double-edged sword type of thing, shooting it in the same like state?
No, no, and I'll tell you why. Because Northeast Florida is basically Southeast Georgia in so many ways, and then Miami is anything but the rest of Florida. It's a melting pot of so many diverse, cultures and ethnicities. Obviously, the big Cuban population, which Melissa was, and then a very dynamic at the time. I don't know about now, but the gay scene down there was very big. Dan getting his jobs and all that. So it introduced me to a lot of stuff that I had never seen before. Just being up in Northeast Florida, but going down there, yeah, it was a lot different. That being said, it was fun. Like it was intriguing to learn and see how different life really was.
Yeah, it kind of did seem like you and maybe Joe specifically were like two of those that maybe had the most of the culture shock because these are things that you guys probably weren't exposed to up to that point and kind of
Yeah, keep in mind we were both in our early 20s. I think I was 24, Joe was 25 if I'm not mistaken. And Joe's, guy from Brooklyn. And I'm sure he had traveled some by then, and I had traveled a little bit too. I'd stayed in Italy for a while and all that. But yeah, being in Miami, it was definitely for Joe and I, Dan seemed to fit right in. I mean, he was just like, let's bring it, let's go out. And not only that, down there, as far as culture goes, being up here, we go to bars or to nightclubs. But you go out at 8 or 9, have dinner, and you're home by 12 or 1. Down there, we didn't even go out till midnight. So learning and, being exposed to that whole atmosphere too was quite different. But again, fun and entertaining. But I don't think I could do it at this age.
I couldn't imagine so.
Yeah.
You never know, though. I mean, you get on one of these, reunion shows they're doing, you might have to.
Yeah, that's a good point. And you know what? I mean, I'm not scared to try anything. Let's put it that way. I'd do it, but I don't think I would enjoy it like I used to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your cast is one of the casts that I think many would refer to as like sort of the ones that have gone private after the show more so, right? Like I'd say like some casts, like they like to remain in the spotlight and continue to like post what they're eating for breakfast every morning on social media. Whereas like you guys kind of took like the life and career approach. At what point maybe for you, like after you, I guess, got off your last stint of doing like an entertainment thing when it came to MTV, did you make the effort to want to like maybe move towards a career-based type of life than like the reality TV stuff?
Well, actually, right after my season, I started doing private investigation. So I kind of started a little career-based there, but I was able to do a couple challenges as well. But it was after the second challenge in Cabo, when we were down there for my birthday, we actually had the toga party because of the hurricane that came in, Hurricane Juliet. I got called for a challenge maybe 2 years after that. And it wasn't so much just the limelight or being out there doing it or the chance of the financial, gratitude or anything like that. It was more about the drama. And once I hit 30 years old, I just realized I didn't want to deal with bullshit anymore.
Yeah.
Especially when you're 30 and you're dealing with the young kids like I used to be, like myself, who are now 21, 22, and they love that shit. They thrive on it. Whereas I'm like, just get the fuck away from me. I don't need that anymore in my life. And anybody that knows me now knows that I am like completely drama free. I don't deal with it. But that being said, if we were to get another reunion, I would deal with drama, but I don't think there would be much drama. When we're all pushing 50 now, attitudes change. So,
well, I mean, if you watch the first 3 homecomings, you would think that, right? But then,
see, I have not watched it. I have talked to, let's put it this way. Well, Norm, who's on the first season,
Oh, I spoke to
It's
him
one
yesterday, actually. He was on
you
here.
Norm. So Norm is one of my best friends in life. Norm and I and Rachel from San Francisco lived together in Beverly Hills. And Norm just became like my big brother. So we talk all the time. Um, but yeah, Norm is a great person. But I've gotten to meet a few of these people and got to know him. And when I talked to Norm about his season, about the homecoming, I should say, he said it was phenomenal. But he's like, Mike, just take the money and run. Like don't get too involved with it. So I figure if we have to do this again, or not have to do it again, but if we all decide to do it again, I'll do it and just deal with whatever comes along. But again, like I said, at this age, I don't see a lot of total drama playing out, because I've also heard that Melissa just had a child too.
Really?
Yeah. So I don't think, people at this age, you just don't want to deal with that shit anymore.
Mm-hmm. I always ask this to some of my guests, like when they step into career paths outside of entertainment, like were the doors more so closing or opening, or did they experience kind of like the whole gamut? What was maybe the contrast for you, like when trying to step into like more of a career path? Did like that ever, did your time on TV like ever like close any doors, or would you say they opened any, or just somewhere?
I wouldn't say as career wise. I don't think it was affected anything. TV, the reality, the challenges, the actual real world itself. There was nothing that affected me anyway. I think the only thing that did was open up doors for me to meet people. And the things I've done ever since then are because of that. Meeting the people that I've met from the shows, or either through people from the shows. I moved to California in '97, the year after. And because of the real world, I've met a couple people who've turned into be like my best friends in life. Therefore, I've traveled the world with them, that kind of stuff. But as far as career-wise, it hasn't really affected me much because in the PI business, everything's pretty private anyway. You know what I mean? So, but now I'm a co-owner of a men's clothing store / bar called T-Dubs, which right there, which is right here in Atlantic Beach on the ocean, and then some aesthetic centers as well. So that kind of helps if you want to, there's Mike. Hey, he was on the Real World, coming to the bar, blah, blah, blah. But for the most part, nobody really recognizes me like they did 25 years ago.
Yeah, it could help with like, if they know that you're on the Real World, they might assume like, okay, this person's pretty well spoken or good with people. So that could be more of like an inviting environment than to have you there. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah,
well, having a bar, being on the Real World, and I'm pretty much an extrovert too. I'm also an introvert, but I'm very, when I'm out, I'm out. Like, come on, let's party. So that helps quite a bit. And then a lot of people don't recognize me, but you'll always hear something in the background. Hey, that's Mike. He was on the Real World. And that seems to open. And it's funny because a lot of the people who do that, like, hey, you were on the Real World. I'm like, yeah, how old are you? They're like, oh, 23. I'm like, fuck, you weren't even born yet. That still amazes me. I'm like, do you have a mom? Something.
You got recognized a lot in public, like back in the day, like when this thing first came out?
When it first came out, yeah. Again, everything was new then. We were the 5th season, so everything was new. So everybody was watching it. I mean, I'm sure they still did after us, but everything, the whole Real World, the concept, everything was new. So yeah, the first, I would say 3-4 years was, anywhere you went was, pretty much like that. But then again, moving to LA, I was in Beverly Hills the first year and then Manhattan Beach the next 12 years. But people out there don't give a shit. Because there's celebrities everywhere. So literally, we're Real World, you're a peon. You're not like Tom Cruise or, Kevin Bacon or, whoever it is. But yeah, you still get recognized and it's fun. It was fun at times. And then doing like charity events was always fun. Stuff like that around the country and speaking gigs. I did a lot with Joe. In fact, that was the last time I saw Joe up until a month ago was 20.
Yeah, I saw that. You guys linked up. Was that like, did you guys run into each other or was that planned?
No, he was in town for a wedding down in St. Augustine, which is about 45 minutes south. And he's like, come on, man. I'm like, let's meet up. I just want to see it because I actually have a great affinity for Joe. I just think he's such a wonderful person, everything he does with his charities. And so we got together for about, I don't know, an hour and a half or so, had lunch. He came to my store and then we walked across the street, had lunch and just laughed our asses off really for about an hour. And then he had to take off.
It's good to see that like he's on board for the whole homecoming too, because I think he was one of the question marks like that a lot of people.
He would have been a question mark, yeah. Like Dan contacted me and he's like, "Look, we got to get a hold of Joe." And I'm like, "Look, I talked to Joe quite a bit, no big deal." Cynthia, he had talked to, said she was in. Then they got a hold of Flora, said she was in. So our two thoughts of the people who might be holdouts for this whole thing that would disrupt it, because apparently they need all seven, would be Sarah and Melissa. Well, being a PI, I found both of them and gave contact. And I called Sarah, actually. I called Sarah myself, which was great to talk to her. We talked for 2 hours catching up. And then I passed on Melissa's number, and I think Flora got a hold of her. And she agreed, said, yeah, I'll do it. Even though she had just had a baby. I think this was 5 months ago, maybe 4 months ago, she had a baby. So, and I think she's 48, 49 maybe.
Wow.
But yeah, so as far as I know, everybody's given a thumbs up. So now it's just a matter of getting it greenlit. And if it gets greenlit, it sounds like we're all in.
Yeah, I think that was what everybody was wondering, because right now you guys are like the hot thing on the market right now amongst like the audience. Like everybody likes to speculate, like, oh, who could be next? Miami's like the
Really?
Yeah, Miami's like trending thing right now.
Now, where do you get that info?
Oh, it's all over Twitter.
Is
man.
it really?
Yeah.
Okay. Like I said, I don't do a lot of that stuff. I'm a Facebook, Instagram guy, so I don't really read a lot of it, but that's great. Look, I hope it happens. I mean, we really do. Just for just to be able to see those guys again, even, just for a week or two. Because let's be honest, doing something like that is a huge part of your life. And like the people you want to spend the time with, that you did it with, you know, like it's kind of like the Brady Bunch doing a reunion or something, you spend a good portion of your life, even though it was only 6 months, but it'd be kind of cool to, reorganize and just see each other again, just for a brief moment. Because chances are it'll never happen again. Yeah,
not only that, just for the special moment of like seeing you guys back together, for you guys obviously to live that out would be great. I think just like a whole experience though, you guys didn't really get like much back in the day to go pretty much put your lives out there for the entire world to see. And you guys laid the foundation for what reality TV would then become by putting your stories out there for others to decipher and say maybe if like they could connect with somebody in the audience and then they could relate to that and it could help them in their life. Like,
right.
I think with now like the checks that they're giving out for the homecomings, like that's probably something that you guys deserve for what you guys did back in the day.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say that our season actually did that. I mean, you got to look at the previous seasons, with Pedro and, Norm being the first, openly gay guy, stuff like that. I think they were way more groundbreaking than us. I think ours was just more of I don't know, we had fun. We were in South Beach. Had our fights. We had our moments. And I personally don't think ours was like a great season, but we did have the best house. I will say that.
It was a nice house.
Yeah, our house was pretty much, personally, that I've ever seen. Again, I don't watch them since my season, but yeah, I think our house was fantastic. But yeah, we put ourselves out there, and the pay scale of what we did back then, 6 months for, just a few $1,000s, to be honest. Now they gave us $50,000 to try and start a business.
Mm-hmm.
And that's South Beach, man. You're not starting any business with $50,000, even in 1996. But yeah, the pay scale is quite different now, and yeah, I think we'd be worthy of that for a couple of weeks, because I'm sure we'd be pretty entertaining, at least.
Yeah. Did you have a plan for the business while you were out there, or were you more so focused on like just connecting?
You know what, I did, and they, I still think I had the best idea ever, and it was basically knowing that we could not start a business with $50,000, a sustainable business. We had an end to a lot of celebrities down there. Mm-hmm. Aerosmith was staying down there. Steven Tyler, we were hanging out. A ton of celebrities. And Dan and I were both working at Ocean Drive Magazine. We had the opportunity to throw what I thought would have been the greatest party ever and make it a fundraiser for a charity. So that was my idea. Like, hey, let's throw a big fucking party. Let's get all these celebrities and make it a fundraiser for charity. And let's just give the money back. We could have raised, I think, shitloads of money. And they're like, no. That's too easy. So we that got shot down.
The cast or production said that?
The production shut it down. They're like, no, you gotta start a business. That's the whole thing.
Man, I think
that bummed me out. Yeah.
I guess ethically speaking, I see where they're coming from, but from a television standpoint, like why not green like that?
Yeah, exactly. And I guarantee, because at that time, the Real World, I don't know the progression of the further Real World went, if it became more popular or less popular, because you've done so many, plus there's so many other reality shows. But at the time, we were known, the Real World was known. Again, we were just filming, so we weren't known yet. We were just filming, but the Real World itself was known and new. So I think that would have been a huge deal. I think all the celebrities that would have, that were there at the time would have jumped on that in a heartbeat. And yeah, I was pretty bummed that didn't happen, but that was my idea. That was my one business idea. And again, that's not a business, but it's something to do with the money. And I think it would have went for good.
It would have made good TV, no denying that.
Absolutely. Could you imagine that one? Holy shit. Yeah, because also we were down there and it was the heart like of modeling season.
Yeah, yeah.
That like literally all the models, we were all hanging out at every bar all the time. So celebrities, models, that would have made a great fundraiser. And I think we could have raised a ton of cash for that one. But like I said, we got the 2 thumbs down.
Was that like a popular thing, like while you guys were filming? Like, where like, say like hypothetically, if you're at like a bar, right? Like, would chicks try to like get around you guys because they saw cameras?
Yeah, absolutely. That was so my thing. So Joe Joe had a girlfriend.
Yeah.
Nikki.
Nick.
And Dan was going to the other bars, I should say.
Yeah.
So that left me. I was the only guy, I'm this all-American guy going out. And then you have cameras around you. And at 24 years old and the bars in South Beach, how do you say this classy? Yes, girls would hit on you. But I've always said it wasn't me they were hitting on. It was the cameras that were behind me or whatever hitting on. So yeah, and not only that, we could bring people back to the house. So yes, it became the norm for people because it was a lot of the same people that were out at the same bars. So once we would walk in and we knew the bar owners and then there's the cameras. So it was not realistic in a way, like they say reality TV, but that wasn't realistic. Walking to bars and getting free drinks and VIP, that's all the cameras, and I have no problem admitting that at all.
Was it like pretty, like you guys had a lot of leeway, or would you say like there were some tight maybe regulations with what you guys were able to do there?
Both. So technically, I mean, I'm sure you know how it all works, but you're mic'd up.
Mm-hmm.
The guys are following you. At the time, we had beepers back at the time because there was no cell phones.
Yeah.
You had beepers. So if they beeped you, you had to go to a payphone call like, hey, where are you? And they wanted you to stay in range. But a few times, I had to escape. If I wanted anything fun to happen, I was giving my 24-year-old self, meeting girls out or something. With cameras around, certain things weren't going to happen. So I would escape a few times, but they gave us some leeway, finally just go out here and there. Mm-hmm. But the funny thing you ask about that is the crew wanted to go out just as much as we did.
Really?
Well, because their lives were depending on what we did, right? So if we sat at home, they're sitting at home, and keep in mind they're pretty much the same age as us, so They want to go out too. So a couple nights I'd want to stay in after being out a few nights in a row, and a new crew would rotate and be there, and they're like, Mike, even though we're not supposed to talk to them, or vice versa, Mike, come on, please fucking go out, please. So I'd be like, all right. So we, that fourth wall got broken a few times. It wasn't supposed to, but I don't mind saying it now 26 years later. But yeah, some of the crew were like, come on, let's go out. So there was some leeway in that too.
Yeah. One thing I do like to do with my guests now is I kind of ask them like their pre-real world and like what they were up to and kind of what led them to their audition process. So could you maybe walk me through a little bit like what your pre-real world life was? I think, were you doing like sports and stuff? Was that like your thing?
Oh, I was managing a restaurant at the time. It was a restaurant right here on the ocean. I was the manager there, at 24 years of age, and the Road Rules had just aired their very first season. And I watched that and I thought, 'cause I've always been a fairly adventurous guy. I like to travel. I like to skydive. I like to fly planes. And I've always had that in me. And so when I watched that season, I'm like, I want to do that. That's what I want to do. So I sent in they were casting for the second season of Road Rules. So I sent in like I said, I propped up a huge VHS recorder, hit record. I'm like, hi, my name is Mike. This is who I am, blah, blah, blah. And sent it in. And I got to the finals of that for the second season of Road Rules. And they flew me to New York. And they were like, hey, you're not getting it. I was like, what the fuck? Like, okay, thanks. Why'd you fly me up there? Like, well, we're going to send you out on a date tonight. So they sent me out on a date. And the girl that I went out with was this tatted up girl who's sweet as can be, but they had cameras following us. I'm like, all right, this is very odd. And she kind of whispered across the table, like, hey, they want you for the new real world. So, because I'd been talking to them for 3 months, all these interviews. I fly to Atlanta and I flew to New York twice, actually. And so I told him I really kind of wasn't interested because I don't want to sit in a house. I've seen the real world. I wanted to travel. And, but they kind of sold me on it with the pool and the jacuzzi and the jet skis. And it's modeling season down there. You know, they knew how to push my 24-year-old buttons. Let's put it that way. So that's how I ended up getting it, though. So I was like, all right, you know, I'll do it. So flew back to Florida, and then they called and made it official. And then literally, I think 10 days later, I was driving down to Miami. I was the last one to be cast.
Really? Wow. What do you think it was about you or maybe the process that you were on that maybe they wanted you on Real World as opposed to Road Rules?
So I remember John Murray telling me, Mike, it wasn't anything you said or didn't say. We just found somebody else. And, you know, I was kind of bummed, like, okay, hey, it's kind of cool. I got to the finals after 50,000 people. And then as far as the Real World goes, I was the last one to be cast. So they had Dan and Joe, you know, they had the token gay guy, the token funny guy, whatever Joe is. They just needed that all-American guy. And also starting a business, I was a restaurant manager, like I said. So starting a business, I was the all-American look, and I had a little bit of business sense. So I think I happened to fill that last gap. I was that last piece of the puzzle. And again, like I said, it was 10 days before. And I think Joe and Dan and stuff were cast like several weeks before that. So, you know, yeah.
So it was more so just about like at first you tried out because you wanted to do like those cool, adventurous, like adrenaline type stuff, not more so. It wasn't more so about TV aspirations then.
That was part of it. Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, I could have tried out for Real World before that, because I'd always kind of wanted to do that, like every young person does, or at least most young people. But the whole aspect of doing it while traveling and doing fun, adventurous stuff, that really like piqued my interest. And I really had no desire to be on Real World, to be honest with you, no desire. I'm just not the kind to sit at a house. Now, I didn't know when you watch the seasons before me, you just see little snippets and it doesn't seem like they do much except argue. I didn't realize it was 6 months of filming crammed into those, 20 episodes. So I got to do a lot more than I thought, and I'm very appreciative of it. But yeah, I really wanted to do Road Rules, and that's why I was really happy when we got picked for a couple challenges.
Yeah, because
you got to do that stuff. I finally got to skydive, which I'd been wanting to do. I did my very first solo skydive, which I love skydiving now. It's a passion. But got to do that. We jumped off the stratosphere in Vegas. Yeah. 700 feet, stuff like that. So I got to do some of the stuff that I wanted to do when I was wanting to do the Road Rules. So it all kind of worked out. It came full circle.
You got to meet a lot of those other seasons, right? Like people from those seasons.
I did. Well, I mean, you kind of had to when you do the challenge because there's really, nobody else. Got to meet people from Road Rules. And then the first one I did, the Challenge 2000, was with Tech and Dave from Seattle. Yeah. Who he and I were like brothers for a while after that. And I haven't seen him in years. And I actually just got his number from a buddy of mine in Vegas like a couple of weeks ago.
Dave Burns?
So, yeah. Oh. Yeah, so I'm going to get in touch with him just to catch up. But then Heather B. from the first Real World. And her and I are like, I mean, I'm her boo. She's my boo. When I go to New York, I always get in touch with her. Yeah, so So a lot of the people that I've got to meet have been all from seasons prior to mine, which is great. And a lot of them we still keep in touch. Like I said, Norm, myself, Heather B., Rachel and Sean, we kind of lost touch, but for many years, like I was in their wedding with Norm, but kind of lost touch. But yeah, so a lot of the people I've met have been great. The friendships that have formed and bonded over the years, yeah, it's been really, really cool.
I was just about to bring this up since all those people that you just listed for the most part, you all have one thing in common, and it's that you guys all starred in the wedding video.
The wedding video.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my God. So that was the house that Norm and Rachel and I lived at in Beverly Hills. It's called The Castle. Yeah. It's this monstrous house that we happened to get. Dan from my season actually found the house.
Really?
I forgot how we found it. He knew the owner or something. But they were filming porn there, dealing drugs. And it was literally a castle. I mean, if you look it up, it was a castle. It was built like a castle with dungeons and everything. And so we filmed it there. And it all started when Norm and I were living there. He wanted to write a movie, like a snuff type film. Mm-hmm. So I'll never forget sitting on the roof and Norm and I like coming up with ideas for movies, and him coming up with ideas, me jotting it down like this and that, and his best friend Clint, who's one of the producers and directors of the wedding video. And it just kind of fizzled. And then about a year later, he's like, look, I got this idea. Like, come on, you're in it. We got Cyrus and all these other people. I forgot who. Forgot Sean and Rachel.
Lindsay from Seattle was in it.
Lindsay was in it. Yeah. God, I forgot. I hadn't seen it in years, but it was fun to do. I tell you what, it was really, really fun to do. It was just getting all of us together and being silly. It wasn't like a huge production video. Obviously, it was shot with a small camera. But yeah, I'd forgotten about that.
No, Norm and I just spoke about this yesterday. I think Warner Brothers picked up the rights to the movie for a while, so that's why it kind of didn't see the light of day as much. And I think Norm just actually got the rights back, so he might be putting it out soon.
Shit, I wonder if that's still relevant. I mean, I'm sure it's still kind of fun to watch, but that was 22 years ago, I think.
2000.
Yeah, it's around 2001 maybe.
Yeah,
that's around there because I know we had just moved out of the house. So yeah, so I moved out in 99. So yeah, it was around 99, 2000. Holy shit. Okay, cool. I have to give him a buzz. That's great. Didn't know that.
Did you get any potential TV opportunities from your time on Real World to potentially do other shows, or was that something you wanted to pursue, entertainment?
I did. I wanted to get into comedy. And I took some acting classes and I did some comedy stuff there in LA. And then honestly, man, I just realized it's not easy.
Yeah.
I mean, I like speaking, this is fun, but I really enjoy being in front of a crowd. We would do college speaking tours, traveling around the country, like at University of Miami, we did one here in Jacksonville at JU. We did one, Connecticut, and being up in front of a group of people. I mean, I love, so I've always wanted to get into that aspect, but man, there's some really smart and funny people out there. So, I mean, you got to be at the top of your game. So once I got into that and looked at the acting stuff, I'm like, you know what? It's just not for me. As much as I wanted to, and I liked it, just not for me.
I think Real Worlders and Road Rules, a popular thing is to kind of shift into comedy, from what I could tell.
Yeah, and I'll never forget this. The challenge we did in Cabo, Theo was on.
Yep.
And I'll never forget it. And I don't even know if he was on a Real World or a Road Rules. I really don't know.
He was on Road Rules.
He was on Road Rules. Okay. But I'll never forget, man, when the hurricane came and we were just kind of stuck there for several days because we didn't have electricity or anything like that. And we were drinking warm beer and tequila. That fucker made me laugh so much back then. And then here he's on comedy, he's doing really well now. And I love seeing that. Yeah, I love seeing that, but he's really good. But yeah, I think as far as comedy goes, he's, I think, the pinnacle when it comes. And then I think Dave from LA did some stand up.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But that was back in the day, but Theo's kind of killing it right now, if I'm not mistaken.
Didn't Dave get sick on that one? The one in Cabo?
Dave
from LA.
Oh, he wasn't on our Cabo challenge, I don't think.
Oh, because
maybe he was.
John apparently replaced him. This is what Norm was saying. You guys got down to Mexico and David got sick. He drank some.
That's right. Holy, see, I never remembered that until you just said it. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so they had both bridges on the side of our hotel were washed away from the hurricane. I think 10,000 homes destroyed, 40 or some people died, and we literally had nothing. We had no ice, nothing. The production had their batteries, but that's how they could keep the lights and stuff on. But literally warm beer and warm tequila. That was it for 3-4 days straight. Oh yeah. Some people would consider that heaven, but it got pretty old after the first day.
That entire challenge just felt like something out of the Twilight Zone with everything happening. You had, in real life, you had hurricanes, but you also had 9/11 had just happened not too long before you guys were going out to shoot this thing.
Yeah. So now, I still have not seen that season of our challenge, but I do remember being there. And I remember, obviously post 9/11, we had to wait 3 weeks, I think, till we went back down because they had to, we couldn't fly on planes. But our first challenge was skydiving down to the hotel on the beach. And I think the first couple challenges were great. And then all of a sudden, hey, we got a Cat 5 hurricane coming, barreling right at us. So it went just from the funnest time to oh shit. Now we made the best of what we had, the toga party and the drinking. And I remember at one point, being the adventure guy that I am, I was going out on the rocks in front of the hotel right before the massive hurricane hit, before the brunt of it. And Julie Peasy yelling at me, Mike, get the fuck off the rocks. She was kind of responsible for the whole thing. But after that, it just deflated. The whole, like everything just went down. So I remember one of the challenges we did was walking around a pool with a raft around our waist.
I remember
playing
that.
like a version of musical chairs. But yeah, I remember it just being very odd once the hurricane hit. And then it just kind of went bleh.
Did the challenges live up to what you had envisioned, or would you?
The first one did. The first one was great. Traveling around on a bus all around the country. You know, we started in Vegas and just kind of went up and around, and then ended up down in Key West, and then back in Miami. And that did. I mean, we got to skydive, jump off buildings, you know, do a buttload of really, really fun stuff. So that was great. The second one obviously didn't live up to the hype, but that was not due to anything other than Mother Nature, you know.
Speaking of mothers, Baloo brought her child on that one. Remember that?
Yes, I do. That's right. God, I saw. You know,
I'm bringing you back down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, man. Oh, now I'm kind of wanting to go and check it. I mean, are there a YouTube or anything, or
I got a Google Drive with the seasons on it if you want it.
Yeah, it'd be kind of. I mean, like I said, I've never watched them. It might be kind of fun now. You know, that I'm older.
Yeah.
Back then, it's kind of cringe. Actually, it might still be cringeworthy now. I don't know, but yeah, that might be kind of fun to watch it. Like I said, I've watched my season and not 1 ounce of reality since.
Were you okay with the portrayal of yourself, like on your Miami seasons, or were there some things like you didn't like?
Yeah, I didn't like the way the interviews went. We had a first-time producer on that. That when we did our interviews, and I'm pretty animated, you know, I talk with my hands and I, you know, move around. And I was told, you know, to sit still, you know, not move. And I just felt like a fucking skeleton. I felt catatonic for a while. I'm like, all right, I can't be myself. And he's like, don't. And it's funny, Rick De Oliveira, who's a dear friend who was the producer of our first challenge. He actually just came. He just came here to Florida. Got to know him again over the past couple of years. And I was talking to him about that exact same thing. And he's like, yeah, that producer, his name was Tom, only lasted 1 season because of stuff like that. So, I mean, I was portrayed correctly as far as the active stuff goes, but like the interviews, like when I watched them, I'm like, good God, like I look so uncomfortable. And that bothered me a little bit, but you know, fuck it.
Now that you're bringing this up, this actually kind of like rings a bell now. You kind of do seem like a little like stoic in the interviews, like almost like somebody's like sitting behind the camera, like telling you what to, you know.
Yeah, it did. I was literally told not to move, like just sit there, and I'm like, fuck, like this is not me. And then I go back and I see like Joe, you know, very active when he talks, you know, Dan, you know, doing this. I'm like, the fuck, maybe, I don't know. Yeah, it didn't fit my persona, that's for sure. At least in the interviews. Everything else, as far as our everyday life, yeah, that was, you know, pretty much me.
Did they portray did they try to like heighten up like the whole scene with like the waitress and you and Melissa?
I think they portrayed that pretty accurately. Yeah, I mean, what you didn't see, obviously, like I don't really get into it. Obviously, that's the most asked question over the last 26 years, at least to myself. You know, out of respect to Melissa, like, you know, if we ever did a reunion, I would talk to her about it. You know, she's got a child now, and I don't want to disrespect anything, but if we decide we ever want to bring it up and talk about it, that'd be great. But yeah, as far as the whole incident goes, it was portrayed pretty correctly. I mean, obviously what you see, I'm out there flashing people and we're in the jacuzzi, and you can't lie about that stuff. It's on film.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was definitely one of the highlights of our season, I know, for sure. And I still get asked about it to this day. To this day, I still get asked about it.
What, like through DMs, I assume, or something like that? Or
just
like
people. No, just people.
Really?
Like, hey, what happened?
Wow.
Yeah. What really happened in the shower? I'm like, I don't know. What do you think? You know,
it's gotta be so weird. Imagine just like in a supermarket reaching for like cream cheese or something, and then some random pedestrians behind you like taps you. He's like, "Hey, so what happened?"
Yeah, it's not quite like that, but yeah, it's it's pretty odd that still get asked, and a lot of people still ask about Dan and Melissa and the fight.
Yeah,
not as much as the shower scene, obviously, or the jacuzzi scene, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, it's it makes me laugh when it happens, because a lot of the people that are asking me look like they're not even old enough to be alive when it happened. So, like I said, I don't know if they air it. I don't think they're airing it at all, at least our season. But somehow they know about it, and it's pretty funny.
Did you enjoy like the fan encounters like post show, or like were some like how was maybe your reception with the fans? Like were they nice, or like were they mean?
I did. Well, yeah, I really did. Especially doing charity events and stuff like that. People were there to see you and they want to meet you. A few times, if you're in your own element, and I just can't imagine how some of these A-list celebrities deal with this shit. But, sometimes you're just in your own element, maybe on a date or something, and you just, hey, I'm just doing my thing. I'm just Mike. I'm not this celebrity. I happen to be on a reality show. And then it turns into, God, he's an asshole, stuff like that, which is the opposite. It's just, fuck. So like I said, I don't know how a lot of these people deal with what they do, on an everyday basis. It would drive me nuts.
Takes a certain level of like discipline and like patience.
Well, discipline, and obviously, you just adapt to it, I guess, at some point. It's just part of the territory for ththose people.
Yeah.
But like that rarely happens to me anymore. Once in a while I get recognized, or like, hey, are you on so and so? But yeah, that's it. It's not something I have to deal with anymore.
Yeah. Well, so you mentioned about like the reality stuff and like the drama, like not necessarily like catering to you. That Melissa and Dan scene, like with them arguing over the envelope, that's referred to as like one of the more like iconic moments from your season, like funny moments. Obviously, it's like a drama scene. So like when for you, from like a third party perspective, like to watch that, is that like objectively funny?
It was to me, because honestly, I'm the one that kind of hyped it up.
Yeah.
I was the hype man on that one. Looking back, from a more mature perspective, it's fucking silly. But back then, it was fucking awesome. I'm not gonna lie. I was laughing the whole time, because at that time, we all had our little pet peeves with certain people, and everybody moves in and it's this great thing. And after a couple of weeks, you start to learn about people and you get in your arguments and stuff, and everybody had their cliques. And I think maybe at that point in time, like maybe Melissa was doing something to get on my nerves or whatever. So I think I hyped up that whole thing. Looking back now, it's pretty petty, but at the time I was laughing my ass off. I'm not gonna lie about that.
Well, I'm glad we were able to make this happen. This was a ton of fun getting to chat. And, hopefully we do see you guys again for homecoming. I know a lot of people are hoping for that, including myself. And it was good to meet you and catch up with you.
Absolutely. Thanks for this. It's my first time doing it. You de-virginized me as far as Skype or Zoom or whatever it is.
Listen, man,
yeah, this is fun though.
We could be having another one of these in the future if a certain show materializes. So.
Be happy to. Absolutely. So fingers crossed on that one. And I have a feeling you will probably be one of the first ones to know.
Yeah. All right. Well, take care. I'll let you know, and I'll send you the link when this is out. And have a great rest of your day.
You too, buddy. Thank you, Michael. Enjoy, buddy.